Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello. Hello. Good morning. Good day. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good tidings. Good night. Goodness. Oh no.
Loch Ness!
Ah, damn.
What were you thinking?
I was too focused on the fact that I hit my eyeglasses on the microphone thing, and it sent me into a frenzied. It's a state of mind. It's I like to think that there are monks out there who have monasteries where they study the ancient art of Loch Ness.
I'm sure that is in fact the truth.
Well, this is of course the Benji and Nick Show.
Yeah, no, it's all in the wrong order now.
It's all gone bananas.
That was the Loch Ness game. It's not about Loch Ness, and it's not a game.
Thank you very much. This is the Benji and Nick Show, your number one vintage television podcast
Seamless.
in the known world. Not to be confused with the gnome world, which is a whole other kettle of fish. But we talk about vintage television, TV from the past, TV you might remember, TV you might want to forget. We look over it, we give it a little review, and, well, we see if it stands up in today's climate. Could be a bit parky. Get your coats.
I've got a jacket on. Which, interestingly, someone called a blazer the other day.
I like calling them blazers.
I would never call this a blazer. To me, a blazer is something you wear when you go to school. My son wears a blazer.
But it's like a jacket. It's like a jumper and a pullover, isn't it? Is it a jumper?
Jazer.
I call it a jumper, but other people call it a pullover. You've got a nice pullover there.
Well, I wonder which is preferable. Oh, hold on, I'm not interested. Anyway, today we'll be talking about the Daleks. Not just, the Daleks as in Daleks. I mean the Daleks as in the first ever Dalek story in Doctor Who. Which might well have been called either The Mutants or The Dead Planet. I think the original scripts had The Mutants on them, and they later changed it to The Daleks because there was a 1972 Doctor Who story called The Mutants.
But then it gets called The Dead Planet because the first episode is called The Dead Planet, isn't it?
Well, the old Radio Times 1970 whatever special has a lot to answer for because they took all their story details from the first entries in the Radio Times, and they all, for the Hartnell stories, they all had the titles of the first episode because in those days Doctor Who had single episode titles. I'm telling you this like you don't know, and of course you know because you're listening to the Benji and Nick Show. Special guest reviewer Shelley Dean from across the pond will be joining us later. We look forward to her thoughts.
Absolutely.
Jamie Anderson, the son of Jerry, is a no-show. He is having his first tiny holiday away. He lives in Wales, so he's not in lockdown in years, I think. So he's off doing that for an extended weekend. But we do have a robot version of him, which he's recorded on that special software.
Which is fab. It's so good. And
we'll play that later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well as that, we'll have our emails as well, sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com.
Yes.
But yes, of course, as always, work is being done on the Patreon. Lots of behind-the-scenes stuff to get that up and running. We should be able to reveal more soon. I'm just in the process at the moment of getting the Discord together, which has been my job in the past 24 hours. So, yeah, that's another little thing to be excited about.
Yes, and after this podcast, Shelley, Benji and I will have a meeting. But we won't bore you with that.
Meeting of the minds.
We'll just bore ourselves with that.
Well, should we crack on with emails, Squire?
Yes. What, shall I do this first one?
Yeah, feel free, sir.
I don't know. Okay, so this is called Doom Watched, which was sent on the 8th of November in the year 1256.
Oh, good year, that. Good, strong year.
Yeah. And it's from Nick Reese. There's an outside chance that you'd pronounce his name Rice, but I'm thinking Reese. Hello. It's been a while since I emailed. Thank you for keeping my Sunday mornings entertaining and making my taste in TV feel slightly more mainstream and less sad.
Pleasure is all ours, sir.
And thank you as well. I was lucky enough to have had the Doom Watch DVD box set bought for my birthday last week.
Look at that, perfect timing.
Incredible, isn't it? So I was able to watch the first episode ahead of your forensic dissection in podcastal form.
Just imagining us with a pair of tweezers now going in and
I like the word podcastal.
Podcastal.
I must agree with the general vibe of your discussion. Once I was acclimatized to the less than opulent sets, very tactful, unspecial effects, and terribly earnest and extremely talky script, I was hooked. I'm 8 episodes in at the time of writing and loving it. And not despite the negatives previously listed, but because of them.
Wow, okay.
So not despite the negative previously listed. Yes. He likes the unspecial effects and the less than opulent sets and the talky scripts. I was thinking I was going to have another Moonbase 3 on my hands, and who wants Moonbase 3 on their hands? Not many people. My goodness, that's dreary. Did we ever actually properly review Moonbase 3?
We haven't done that one yet, but of course
No. Okay.
we have recorded a little commentary, haven't we, for the Patreon of the Sontaran experiment, which does feature spacesuits from Moonbase 3.
I wonder where you were going with
see,
that.
It all makes sense. You just got to trust me.
Trust your Benji.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very. Yes, it does. I thought they were from Moonbase 3, and Benji double checked, and turns out I was right. Which took me forever to get, Moonbase 3, and which I wanted to love so much but didn't. Have you covered Moonbase 3 on your podcast? No, well, we should do. Should I dig out the DVDs and watch them again?
Possibly.
Moonbase 3. Moonbase 3 has the smallest sets. It's like everyone is touching noses. Not with their fingers, but with each other's noses.
They decided to set a moon base up on the moon, but they didn't have much money, so they had to make a very little one. A tiny moon base.
Little moon base, they should have called it.
Kleines
My partner
Moonbase.
sat through the first episode of Doomwatch, but was clearly less than impressed. So we started watching another one of my birthday gifts instead, Erie, Indiana, which is more acceptable to her tastes. Thinking about it, as you've been talking about stretching the focus of your show to include US productions and not being so 70s centric, Erie, Indiana might be of interest. I don't know what it is, do you?
Never heard of it. I could do a quick Google if you like.
Yeah. Thanks again for all the entertainment. Time to pop Supercar. Keep it cool on while I remember. So we're a week out with you there, Nick. Z Quiverly. That's Dalek speak, isn't it?
Z Quiverly.
Yes. What is it?
I can't.
Does it mean?
Means nothing to me, I'm afraid.
It's from the Dalek dictionary in the Dalek book. Oh goodness, you don't know. Neither do I, but I at least know that I don't know.
You know that you don't know.
Which is not much. Perhaps I'll type that into.
Oh, Erie, Indiana here is an American
The
horror
Dalek
science
book.
fiction series aired at NBC 91 to 92. That's very obscure, isn't it? I quite like it. They've got great haircut on the front cover of the box set, which has got somebody with like the good curtain haircut, classic 90s.
Can I just tell you something?
Go for it.
Sequivally means farewell. It was in the Dalek book.
Isn't that wonderful? Sequivally.
Sequivally. There's also if you put the letter J in front of anything in Dalek language, it turns it into something horrible. So if you put J's equivalent, it would be farewell, weakling.
Wow. So that's purely it. That's just the one.
And J Galcor means, I can't remember what that means. What does Galcor mean? I'm going to have to look up Galcor now.
J Galcor.
Well, just look up Galcor. Galcor. Because the example they give is a Galcor. Oh, no, Galcor. It's a comparative phrase in the dialect. Follow me, I am your guide. That's right. So J Galcor means follow me, I'm your guide, weakling.
Well, you got better results than me. I got XXX video chat with Jazza Fox and live sex cam. So yeah, that's apparently what the Daleks watch as well.
I got Galcor TARDIS fandom TARDIS wiki.
Oh, I didn't get that. It said here Gaelic Dalek. It said, did you mean Gaelic Dalek? No. But I like the idea. Well, shall I take these next two ones, seeing as the one email here is a sentence? I feel like I need to change the balance.
It's going to get a good response from us, though, isn't it?
We'll see how it plays. Let's have a look. It's from Adam Turnbull, sent on the 8th of the 11th, 2020, the year of our Lord 2316, in the future. It says here, just wondered if you thought about talking about Ghostwatch. It's very creepy and caused a lot of trouble at the time when it was made. Well, Adam, if you look in our backlogs in the archives, you'll find that we actually did do a Ghostwatch episode, and let me just say, some creepy stuff happened to us as well whilst we did it. We were in the same room up in Nick's flat in London, and all went a bit pear-shaped, didn't it? It was a true masterful podcast.
My laptop fell up. We were talking, and unbeknownst to me, behind me, my laptop was slowly sliding off the sofa, and then it's a hard floor, so my laptop hit that floor like that. I said a rude word, and we were doing an unedited podcast.
It was so loud as well. That was the real shocker. It was so loud.
We were a right couple of ninnies, weren't we? We had that look on, and we were kind of, what was that?
And just for that brief moment, both of us were like, was it a ghost?
There is more to heaven and earth.
Yes, there was a spare pair of trousers that day, I can assure you.
So we have done it, so you can look it up, Adam.
So look at it. If you type into Google, I'll do it now, I'm sure it will come up. Benji,
you can go to
and Nick
SoundCloud, you'd find
Ghostwatch. If you just type Benji and Nick Ghostwatch in, you will get a spinning wheel. Which if you just wait... Here we go. Yep, it comes up. There we go. And you can listen to it straight away. It's on YouTube, actually. So go forth.
It is on YouTube. They're all on YouTube, yes.
Hear the moments of terror.
Yes,
the moments of terror.
Benji Clifford surprised his own delay.
I love the comment here from Duncan Wilson saying, haha, best podcast to date. The bit with the computer had us in stitches. Or maybe it was Pipes.
Oh, Pipes is the name of the ghost in Ghostwatch, wasn't it? Yeah.
Great fun.
Yes.
Well, I'll carry this on then. Neil Allen sends one here on the 10th of the 11th of 2020, in the year of our Lord 55. So Neil went right back, didn't he?
Right back.
Hi guys, really enjoyed last week's review of Doomwatch and the point that both Nick, Benji and Shelley made that watching older or vintage TV requires you to adjust to a different set of values than TV that we're used to watching today. That's it. You know, that's a good face, Nick. You've got to get yourself clocked in, haven't you? I've been dipping in and out of my Doomwatch box set for about a year now. I've watched all the famous ones, the Plastic Eaters, the one with the giant rats. I think that they had the same agent as Mega Rat from Talons of Wang Chiang.
Wang Chiang?
That's what it's. No, it is. It says Wang Chiang here. That sounds slightly rude. The one with Patrick Troughton in.
Patrick Troughton, yes.
Patrick Troughton. But the one that really gave me goosebumps and sent a shiver up my spine, as it says here, was the one that sounds like what's his name from Allo Allo? This one will put a shiver up my spine. Was the one that never got broadcast. The episode Sex and Violence.
Well, having read this, I immediately went and watched that episode, actually.
And what did you think of it?
Well, it's extremely dated, very interesting. The reason I think they didn't show it, however, was that they actually show, and I was really shocked, and thinking about it again, I'm still shocked to my core. They actually showed real footage of people being executed by firing squad in Nigeria.
Wow.
And you actually see a whole load of guys get killed. So I would recommend skip over that bit or do what. I mean, you really...
It's pretty heavy.
I have never seen a real human being killed violently. And so I've now seen that courtesy of Doomwatch. So I think it was a massively irresponsible thing to do. I mean, it's sort of slightly racist that they kind of thought it was allowable because all the people being shot were black. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know.
It's not really appropriate, is it? Really?
It's horrific. But there's a lot of. I mean, it has a liberal agenda. So a lot of the. There's a very prim vicar and a very prim Mary Whitehouse type person involved. It's
ironic,
in it.
Isn't it?
Yes. So, yeah, it is. It is shocking, and I still think that would not be broadcast today either. I don't think it's too. That was a step too far, isn't it? Just talking about it makes me realise how much it shocked me. I'd kind of locked it away a bit. And it's just come back. But yes, I love the fact that you talk about the giant rats, the plastic, the Patrick Troughton. You imagine Doomwatch saying, well, we've had a plastic-eating virus. We've had deadly flesh-eating rats. This week, we've got Patrick Troughton. It's like Patrick Troughton is some scourge that the Doomwatch team. He's sort of running around doing Doctor Who impersonations everywhere. So I'm afraid he just turned up in a shopping precinct and, yes, he got out the sonic screwdriver.
We couldn't shake him off, I'm afraid. It says, I think one of the most thought-provoking things I've ever seen on TV, and it's as if the writer could look 50 years in the future to see the issues that society is facing today. Will you review, with your review of Doomwatch, it got me thinking that maybe the Benji and Nick show should set up its own research organisation, but with a lot less sexism and more research into vintage TV. Here's an idea for the first project. We need white lab coats, don't we?
Yes.
And those ticker tape machines and the big things that spin, Says here, it's a real shame that, like Doctor Who, some of the episodes are missing. But there must be some people who watched the whole series when it was first broadcast and are still alive today. Is there not some way for modern-day Doomwatch government organisation to recover these memories, pop them onto DVD, and let us watch the whole series again? Well, you never know.
You could say that about Doctor Who, couldn't you? Yeah.
It's like that rumour, when they said that all television is... Well, not rumour, it was an April Fool's joke that all television is beamed into space, and that one day we'll be able to somehow intercept the beams as they come back to Earth and re-record them or something.
Well, that's not... them coming back to Earth is not true, but yeah, somewhere in space are the transmission waves of all the missing Doctor Who stories.
But they're never
diminishing
coming back,
rapidly. Though. No. So that is my sole reason for wanting to explore space, to go out and catch the broadcasts of Doctor Who.
It's mad, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe we'll
some
catch
alien
up.
species in Alpha Centauri are kind of watching Evil of the Daleks right now.
They're sitting there thinking, can't we put on Generation Game instead?
Life is the name of the game.
Yeah, somewhere out there, Bruce Forsyth is treated as some kind of extraterrestrial god.
Yes.
And that's just in Basildon. It's the same
It's all true.
for Doctor Who. If you were 10 years old in 1963, you'd be 67 years old now. There must be a Doctor Who fan out there that watched all the old missing episodes. All we need to do is find this person, get those memorised episodes on DVD, and hey presto, no more missing episodes. Yeah, he's sold it to me.
It'd be really easy to do, wouldn't it?
They'd be a worthy sacrifice for the cause. Maybe the Benji
Extract
Nick
the
Patreon
memories.
is launched. Some of the money can be spent on this vital research project. Maybe it can. Maybe we'll do the research fund. Thanks to all you guys and all what you guys do to make Sunday morning really special, Neil. Well, thank you for writing in, Neil. Always a pleasure. And if you want to get your emails in, anybody across the world or in space indeed, or on the planet Forsyth, then just send them in to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com.
Ah, the planet Forsyth. Well, it's time now for us to talk about the Daleks, so I'm going to invite Shelley Dean.
I'm going to invite the Daleks.
Yes, and here they are. Here's one of them.
In fact,
Here's
they're
one we
here
exterminated
right now.
earlier.
It's the pyre of smouldering ash. Smouldering is such a good word, isn't it? Welcome, Shelley. Welcome.
Hi, boys.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Jolly good. Well,
Why are you black and white?
well, I thought I'd get into the spirit of things. We're doing black and white Doctor Who, so I thought I would go
Okay.
with that and kind of, go for that sort of vibe today.
Fantastic. Getting in the groove of the mood.
I was going to do it,
Absolutely.
but then I found I couldn't.
And that was the end of that.
I probably
Rubbish.
can't, so I'm not even going to try.
We were just discussing that, Jamie, did you listen to Jamie's
Yes.
robot?
Yes.
Let's play that one now. That's going to be an interesting edit, isn't it? How am I going to do that?
That
Who
was
knows,
your
quite frankly.
decision.
I know, I'll just play it on here. Where is it? Here it is.
Hi Nick, Benji and Shelley. Sorry I can't be with you in person, but thankfully Jamie Bot has offered to take my place. The Jamie Bot has scoured the internet for useful reviews of Daleks. Here are some amazing one-star reviews from Amazon. Here is the first one. As a 5-star fan of the 21st century version of Doctor Who, I found this entire package a waste of time. To me, Doctor Who is intended to be witty and energetic.
Witty.
And brilliant. The Doctor Who portrayed in this package is the total opposite. No one in this cast is witty. The plots are boring and the Doctor is annoying. I think he was meant to be. The crew survives in spite of themselves in these 3 stories, and certainly not because of anything the Doctor does. Here is another great review. I've been watching Doctor Who since I was very young in 1969 and thoroughly enjoyed it in all that time. However, when I do see old episodes, even from when I watched it all those years ago, it's very obvious that it's far better now. This original series was obviously very pioneering for its day, but the sets are awful, the stories drag out, and I've seen better acting at my local amateur dramatic society. It's fine for nostalgic purposes only. And finally, Hartnell is not a very likeable Doctor Who. The acting is over the top, and the sets are, well, childish. I have to keep reminding myself when this series was made. So there we have it. The people have spoken. They cannot be argued with. You must respect the will of the people. Put Daleks in the bin.
Daleks.
Okay, well, we're done. The end of the podcast.
Yeah,
that's it.
that's
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Yeah,
Let's get close to the mics.
Thank you very much.
Daleks in the bin. That's awful and not witty enough.
It's so funny. He says he's been, or she, I'm assuming it's a he.
We have
That's
no
horrible.
idea.
We have no idea. This person said that they've been watching since they were a child in 1969. So, but they're surprised at how it was shot in 19. It's so
weird,
funny.
isn't it? And it's just, I find it interesting, that whole thing where they expect, you see, the Doctor, in a way, has, like all heroes, they've all become a bit like superheroes, and they're meant to solve everything all the time. And one of the things I love about the Daleks is that the Doctor is a bit of a passenger. I mean, he does find a way to distract the Daleks' defense systems and everything, but he's, it's the plot is not being moved by the one super character. It's all
He's sick
circumstances
almost the
that-
entire episode.
You're in it for the ride.
He's debilitated because he's of the radiation poisoning. So he's really not actively doing anything until later on. So, yeah.
I mean, they're all pretty ill, aren't they?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I sort of jumped the gun. Traditionally with these things, and I think it's a good tradition, we go to Shelley first because she's the newcomer to
She's the
to all this.
best.
Yeah, because she's the best. That's what I'm saying.
That's
sorry,
right.
sorry.
God.
What's the matter with me? So, speak quickly
I'm going to speak quickly.
or slowly.
Okay, so obviously I went ahead and watched the whole
That's
7.
what we're meant to do.
All
Do you do it
7
in one
of them.
sitting? One
Yeah.
sitting?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so, and that obviously changes everything as far as how it's supposed to originally be watched, because cliffhangers don't exactly have the same effect when you're literally going, oh my gosh, plunger coming at me, to immediately resolving what is going on. So, watching it and seeing the first episode, it's so hard to actually gauge what it was like to watch it for the first time when it first came out, because obviously we know who the Daleks are, we know the history of the Daleks, and etc. etc. So I don't know how terrifying that very last shot actually, but I'm sure it was, with Barbara up against the wall with the just the angle of the camera was the plunger part coming at her. But as a whole, I enjoyed the first episode. Are we talking first episode, or are we talking the whole?
Just the whole
thing.
piece.
The whole
thing.
shebang. Great. I loved the first episode because it was, obviously it's the second serial serial in the series.
It is. Yeah.
I didn't realize what words I was saying. So we're still learning who these characters are, and we're still learning who the Doctor is, and what the TARDIS is, and what they're doing, and what their purposes are. So it's really interesting to have him not knowing where they are, and and Ian and Barbara are like, you kidnapped us, and why didn't you take us home? And he's just like trying to say, well, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. So you're getting this sense of he is imperfect, and he's not the superhero like you were just saying. He's not going to come in and swoop in and solve all the problems and fix everything all the time. And so, yeah, it was, I really enjoyed that part of it. And I enjoyed, there were suspenseful parts to it. And I loved when Susan was falling behind in the first episode when she wanted to pick the flower, and does she hear that sound, or is that sound us? Is she just sensing that someone's there?
She's just sensing, that's radiophonic music.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, is she hearing it, or is she just that, you get that creepy feeling when you sense someone around you?
Yeah.
That was a really great scene. I loved that. And then when no one believed her, it was like, well, she's just the dumb kid. Who would believe? No, there's no one out there.
Well, they had no evidence, did they, really?
Right, just her word, which kind of upset me that her grandfather didn't even believe her.
No, I know. It's also the sexism of the day, isn't it? It's because she's a girl, they don't believe her, really. That's what it comes down to. They don't respect her enough. But having a lack of respect for her wouldn't have appeared odd for the audience because she was a young female. So who believes a young female sort of attitude?
They get into that later with the Thal. With the female Thal is talking and somebody says to her, well, what are your thoughts on this? And she said, well, I don't really have an opinion. And they're like, well, that's not surprising.
Exactly. I mean, it's massively sexist, isn't it?
But I love that
there's even a bit of dirtiness in there, a bit of sauciness, isn't there? Where she says something, he says, well, that's a double meaning. I thought, and this is a kids' show, so just watch it.
Belt up,
but all in all, it's a great, I love that it's the introduction to the Daleks, which is the most iconic thing in Doctor Who next to the Doctor, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
No, I think as far as anyone sensible is concerned. I'm biased, obviously.
Yeah, Nick hates them.
Nick doesn't have any opinion because that's not unusual. So I really enjoyed, I really enjoyed seeing how they're introduced into the story, into the world that we know and love.
And what did you think of that? Yeah, what was your...
That I loved when they opened up the Dalek, when they opened up the top and the camera doesn't show what's in there. So you're still kind of like, I mean, we know what's in there because we know now.
Yeah.
But I love how they subtly, they put the cloak thing over it and then they pull it out. And then it was weird that there was that scene where they zoomed in on it and there was just like that little creepy crawly coming out.
Yeah.
And then they never showed it again the rest of it.
No, that's it. That's the because point. Because they got left behind. Yeah.
So
that's one of the best cliffhangers, I think, that.
Yeah.
It's quite a great contrast with when they first start talking about the Daleks. They said maybe there's someone inside it, and Susan goes, she laughs at the thought that there's a little creature in there, and then they think, oh, there is.
Yeah. So it was. I really, that was my favorite part about it, was just that learning the beginnings of that, and the fact that the Doctor didn't know who they were yet.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're thinking, well, does he know them? Wait, no, he doesn't know who they are. So that was that. I loved that part of it. So that was the real, very, very first time for everybody.
I rewatched Into the Dalek the other day, and Capaldi's Doctor says, I wasn't really the Doctor until I went to Skaro and met the Daleks, and then I was really the Doctor, doesn't he? He says that, which is...
I've forgotten that. Wow, yeah.
And that in itself, you only have to look at the viewing figures to see that makes sense in itself. First episode of the Dalek, of the Dead Planet, episode 1, drew a 6.9 million rating. Okay, which isn't bad, but by the standards of the time, that wasn't what it could have been. But of course, by the end of it, episode 7, it was up at 10.4, and there were no weeks where it went down. It only went up. And so when you look at it that way, in a way, Doctor Who, it really was kind of the start of the phenomenon of what Doctor Who is all about. Doctor Who, in its actual sense of the word, Doctor Who is Doctor Who because of this story.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is, if anyone disagrees with this and thinks this is outrageous out there listening, I'm sorry. But if it weren't for this story, Doctor Who would have been forgotten. It
Yeah.
would have lasted a year.
Absolutely.
This is what, and
Wow.
at that moment when someone holds a sucker out, because I don't think they even had a Dalek prop at that point at the end of episode 1. They just had this. They knew it would have a sucker arm, so someone just holds it out at Barbara. That moment where. It still sends shivers down my spine. I mean, I didn't see it at the time. I was too young. Or if I saw it, I don't remember. Where it just goes, bah! And the thing there, and she just screams with all her heart. That is the birth of Doctor Who right there. That's
Blood
Doctor Who as we
curdling
know and love it.
Yeah.
Something scary and terrifying cliffhanger. Absolutely. That's when Doctor Who began, really. And that's when Doctor Who's future was assured. People were phoning Terry Nation up that night going, what was that thing? Because they couldn't see what it was. It was
Yeah.
just this thing. I mean, they
Yeah.
had no idea what was on the other end.
Yeah.
And what was going to happen, what they were about to be introduced to as well. Let's put it that way. A cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about this story for me is all about breaking boundaries, and it's all about absolutely redefining everything. They had a lot to do in a very short space of time, in the sense that you've got, they're establishing, first and foremost, they have that moment where they're establishing the TARDIS a bit more, because obviously in the previous, serial, we went on our first trip in the TARDIS, and everything happened with, all the cavemen and all that. That first episode, you're immediately in there and they're trying the food machine out, and there's a bit of
I
fun there.
love that.
And you're establishing that, because that's something you've got to keep going as well. You're establishing that. We then come to the alien planet, and we've got to establish that. There are so many things. You've got to work on that relationship with everybody. Then, of course, it's the Daleks, and you have to explain somehow to an audience in these short, 25-minute episodes that these are little creatures inside casings. They run on static floors. They are fighting the Thals. There's so much going on in this that I love. And that's why I think I find this quite impressive, that it does it with such finesse. And even then, people argue about television being slow back in the day. I happen to think that actually, with this particular story, it works so well because you feel like you're there, because every moment of that, when you're in that cell and then the Dalek comes to the door and then they break out and you've got to escape. It's not done in like a 5-minute jobby of like, bish bash, we're out, run, let's escape, outside, we've done. A bit like in the movie, I suppose. It's not that long.
Well, which Shelley hasn't seen. The
No.
movie Doctor Who and the Daleks is an adaptation of
I
this.
didn't. Yeah, I've heard of the movie, and I knew Peter Cushing played the Doctor in the movie, but I didn't realize it was an actual adaptation of this particular story. I thought it was something totally
it's
separate.
this story totally really boiled down. You should watch it because
Okay.
you'll be excited and appalled at the same time, because you think, what, that whole big moment, they've just made like someone wiggled an eyebrow instead of that whole 10-minute scene.
They've got, of course, as well, listeners, if you want to hear our views on the Dalek movies, one of our first ever podcasts, you can just type in the Benji and Nick Show, the Dalek movies, and you'll be able to hear us talking about that as well.
We did both Dalek movies, did we?
Did it
Bish,
double
bash,
whammy?
bosh.
I know, because I was going to say we'd do Doctor Who and the Daleks next week, but we've already done it, so there we go. But
Well, we could revisit it for Shelley's benefit.
That might be fun. One thing I will have to say with this, and that's something that obviously Nick and me are both music people, and love all the geeky music stuff. And I have to say it, Tristram Carey, who did the music for this. Now there is another absolute groundbreaking bit of work there, because it's so weird and so eerie and mechanical and odd, and there's nothing. And I really believe there's nothing that was ever quite like it before this on television, and it's just wicked.
And Tristram Carey was perfectly capable of doing really traditional orchestrations and stuff, but here he just did something phenomenal. I mean, like you said, Shelley, you think, were we meant to hear that? I'm not sure, because it was so odd. And all those reverse noises when the Daleks are, and all that boom, boom, boom going on. It's very weird. I mean, obviously they didn't have the facilities they couldn't afford an orchestra, so necessity was the mother of invention. They created weird stuff.
And he himself created weird stuff, because a lot of the sounds and machines that made these noises were actually stuff that he'd picked up just here and there, ex-army bits and bobs, old radios that he'd worked on to turn them into machines to make noises. It's all really, a mishmash of different bits and bobs. But I just love it. Everything about this story, for me, it's just perfection. Honestly, that's the thing. I can't say a bad word about it. I really can't.
Going to the Jamie Robot reviews, obviously it is primitively made, and it's massively overambitious for the kind of production it is. I mean, were they in was it Lime Grove Studios?
Yes, it would have been Lime Grove, I'm
so
sure.
I can't tell you how small those studios were. They were ridiculously small, and yet they decided to create an entire alien planet, with a rock face, an alien city outside, an alien city inside, masses of corridors, and a swamp, a mountain and caves. And they did all that in this ridiculously small studio and then shot it continuously, almost as live, with hardly any edit points. I mean,
sweltering heat as well, of course, inside the studio.
Yeah, the lights had to be so bright.
Which worked to the advantage of having them look ill because they were all sweaty.
Yes.
So
yeah. It's just, it's remarkable that they pulled it off as well as they did. I mean, talking of pulling it off, my favourite cock-up is when someone pulls off the bit of polystyrene in the cave, don't they? And there's just this white patch left there. And I just really feel, I've said this before, that, William Russell's next line where he goes slightly hysterical. I think he's trying to get out a laugh about the fact that they all know that a bit of the set is now missing.
Just hanging off. Yeah.
Oh, Barbara! No, oh God! This program is so crappy. He's thinking to himself. The Daleks. It's so difficult to imagine what the impact of the Daleks would have been. But I mean, people went absolutely bonkers for them because they're their own little weird creation, aren't they? These are actually the Daleks that were used in the movie. Well, full-size versions.
Yeah.
But, it's very heavy.
Very dinky. Very dinky.
Peter Cushing was only this tall. It's just... and these props were brand new in this.
They look beautiful.
There's been a terrible tradition of the Daleks looking tatty in subsequent stories because they do get bashed around. I mean, you notice people really bash them in the battle sequence, don't they? But I think they're operated very, very well in this. And what do you think about the way they speak, Shelley? Or Benji, actually? It's quite different, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Very different.
Very different. I mean, there's a lot more language. I think we covered that, and I don't even remember the title of... I don't remember titles of things. One of the other episodes that we watched at...
Planet of the Daleks, I think.
Probably, I don't know.
Did you notice the similarities between Planet of the Daleks and this?
Yes. Yes. But I had mentioned in that, when we discussed that it was interesting to me how much language that they had. Because later on, it's brought up that it's a more limited, and they have no way when again, don't know the names of the shows, but when Clara's inside of the Dalek and she's trying to say what she's trying to say, and the only...
It just comes out as exterminate.
It was just coming out as other words than what she was trying to say. And I hadn't realized that in Classic Who, they had full dialogue, they had full language capabilities. So that was an interesting take on it.
I think there's a sort of paranoia in the or unnecessary worry in New Doctor Who that I felt right from the word go with Russell T Davies, that they were worried that stupid voice was just going to put people off. Right. That they didn't want someone to be turning on their televisions during prime time on a Saturday night to hit loads of this going on all the time, off, Yeah. You can see the worry, and that's why he wanted me to be more expressive as the Dalek, and why I think you're absolutely right in the post, the 21st century version of Doctor Who, the Daleks are less articulate.
Yeah.
Whereas they were very chatty in this. So they were saying things like, "I feel that,"
Yeah.
And really, the evolution of the Dalek language and the whole exterminate thing. The Daleks exterminate. This all came from press coverage. It was the press
They never said exterminate. They didn't say exterminate on its own.
As a chant, no. In fact, I believe that the Daleks didn't chant exterminate until Death to the Daleks, actually, Benji.
Wow. That's quite late on, isn't it?
And that's where you get a Dalek going down a corridor going, exterminate,
hold on.
exterminate.
No, hold on. day of the Daleks, they will be exterminated. They will be exterminated.
Yes.
And then so maybe... Who knows?
But they don't do the kind of, I'm
don't
going
do
to
the
exterminate
full-on.
you, keep chanting exterminate before I do it, which always leads people to say, well, why don't you just do it rather than just scream about it? You know?
Get on with it.
Yeah.
Like the one that comes up the stairs after Sylvester McCoy's going, exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. And Sylvester McCoy's right in front of him. You think, you now have had 7 chances to blow him to pieces, and you're still just saying you're going to do it, you know.
I mean, talking of language in this, you know, you hit the nail on the head about how, you know, they're very chatty and they're very on it with this one. Interestingly enough, of course, when you talk about press coverage, the following story, you know, Dalek invasion of Earth, in that one.
Well, the next Dalek story.
The next Dalek story, it's completely... There's not so much of that anymore. They're much more kind of one-liners. Hello, but you know they do the odd sentences here, and there's less of that kind of full-on and more just sort of statements, isn't there?
Yes, interesting. I think they'd already said, let's have less of that nonsense.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, there was. I did read that there was difficulty when they were recording the Dalek voices for this serial, because there was the bleed through headphones when they had to scrap the whole first recording that they did and then go and do a second to fix the leaked audio sounds. That was what I read it in Wikipedia.
I don't know what that refers to. What do you know, Benji?
Maybe it was to do with the it could have been something to do with maybe the sound of what was going on in front of them, perhaps coming through the microphone and thus getting a modulated. Maybe it was that.
Let's hear this.
I'm going to read exactly what it says. Some of the Dalek dialogue was pre-recorded on 13 November by Hawkins and Graham, portraying the higher-pitched Dalek 1 and lower-pitched Dalek 2, respectively. Weekly recording of the serial began on 15 November. It was later discovered that the first recording was affected by induction, an effect in which the voices from the production assistant's headphones was clearly audible. The episode was re-recorded on 6 December, pushing the weekly recordings of episodes 4 to 7 back by 1 week. The final episode, blah, blah, blah. So that's
wow.
Yeah.
So the actual recording of the full episode on camera had to be done again.
Yeah, it seems like,
wow.
yeah. So maybe that's, if anything, that's why they cut back on dialogue for the Daleks.
Nick's there like, it was all a lie. This isn't the original after all.
The Dalek dialogue was mostly pre-recorded in those days, wasn't it? And they used to just play it in, because the Grams operator would play it on quarter-inch tape. I didn't mention that when we did Adventures in Space and Time, and they said, we want it just as it was, so you'll be there doing the Dalek dialogue like Peter Hawkins was. And I thought, I'm not going to do myself out of a part here and say, no, that's not how they did it. It was just played on the tape. You know, I thought, no, absolutely, I'll be here doing it like they did it in those days. But they did later on start to do it with the Daleks. I mean, you know, that clip we've shown you on YouTube of Evil of the Daleks, Shelley, you know, that's clearly the Dalek voice artist is clearly interacting with Patrick Troughton, because Patrick Troughton accidentally cuts across one of his lines at one point, and the Dalek voice artist allows for that and then continues. You know, if that were pre-recorded, it wouldn't. Yeah, I think you needed to be able to improvise around Patrick Troughton.
Yeah. Well, another interesting thing that I saw when I was doing my research was that Ridley Scott was the original person who was assigned to be the designer.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Due to scheduling conflicts, that was why Raymond Cusack was hired instead. And it fascinates me, and this has probably been discussed prior, but what Ridley Scott's ideas would have been and how different things would have been had that change not taken place.
It's incredible. It's just, you know, all these pivotal moments in history, in TV history, just to explain that in those days, roles on TV shows in the design department, costume, they were done. There were design and costume departments, and there was a rota. So a director couldn't really specify who he or she, mostly he, had working on his show. It was just whoever was available. Right. That's it.
That's fascinating.
You've got Raymond Cusack. I don't like him. He's rubbish. You've got him.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what you got.
That's what you got. That's how it was done. So it was a revolutionary thing, I think, introduced in the 90s in the BBC before they'd gone completely with freelancers, where they introduced a thing called producer's choice, where the producer could say, no, I want that person doing it, and it was allowed. And that was a huge change within the culture of the BBC, that you were allowed to choose. I mean, I think before it was done sort of, in smoke-filled rooms and the bar and everything, like, we'll try and get so-and-so to do it. But technically, it was the designs allocation manager who would tell you who was designing your show.
Oh, wow.
And it could have been someone who was just cutting out bits of paper in the shape of goldfish the week before. And then suddenly they were given a major historical drama to do the next week, because the idea was they were all perfectly qualified and they could all do it. I don't know whether that worked with sound operators or indeed with directors. I think directors were all freelance. The producers were all on staff as well. So they all had 9-to-5 jobs, as it were. And they had to be, allocated to each production. Interesting. Different times, really.
Different times, very different way of working.
And the cameramen certainly would have just come to the production on the day of the recording. And they, in the morning, they would have just looked at the shots, and they would have just had bits of card with just the shots they were doing, and they would have had no real sense of what it was all about. So you can imagine when these Daleks, I wonder what the cameramen thought of the Daleks. Yeah, they must have thought it was hilarious nonsense, which of course it is.
But little did they know, of course, that they'd be working with, TV royalty. Let's be honest here, because that's what it is. It's the beginning of Doctor Who. It's the reason Doctor Who is still here, and every single Doctor Who monster, no matter how brilliant, and there's so many brilliant ones, they're all attempts at being as good as the Daleks.
Yeah.
And there's sort of none of them are ever going to be. I mean, there are lots of fans who say, oh no, I prefer the Cybermen, or I think the Silence, or whatever. But ultimately, in cultural terms, nothing beats the Daleks. They were first. This story was done in spite of the show's nominal creator, Sidney Newman, not wanting. This is precisely the kind of story he did not want.
Yeah, he didn't want bug-eyed monsters, is how it was referred to. And what I found super interesting was that Terry Nation came with this story. He wrote this because he was where did I just...
He was writing for Tony Hancock.
Well, he came up with it that it was based on the idea that an entire race could be exterminated because of what happened with the Nazis. And I thought that was just so interesting that when you look at it, and I know there have been lots of comparisons to Daleks to Nazis and things like that. So it was just, I thought that was, threat of racial extermination by the Nazis and the concerns of advanced warfare. That was what his outline was about.
Bombs.
Yeah, he latterly started saying, yes, obviously it was the Nazis, because that was the biggest threat to humanity in historical terms, closest to this. All our enemies now tend to be in fiction tend to be corporate and cool, but back in those days they were shouty, nasty, fascistic things, because the British public had a very recent, real memory of that being the threat, and also the whole thing about the threat of nuclear war. And, radiation and mutation, all those fears were very, very...
Radiation!
were very high in people's minds. It's difficult to know, I've spoken about this series for so long in my head and to other people. So it's difficult to know what new can be said about it. But, yeah, I think when I first saw it, because I didn't see it until... When did I first see it? I want to say I saw it at the National Film Theatre. I certainly didn't see it when it was on. As I said, I was too young. And I suppose I was a little bit more like the Jamie Robot reviewer. A little bit so, this is a bit old-fashioned and clunky, but, And I think I was a bit disappointed that the Dalek voices didn't sound as electronic as I wanted them to sound, and their voice effect varies from episode to episode. I mean, it was obviously just a totally random thing, the way they switched on the ring modulator and went, it's something like that, I think.
Let's try this today. Maybe this will sound good today.
I mean, I did ask Dick Mills, who latterly worked on Doctor Who, certainly not at this stage. and in episodes he was at the radiophonic workshop, and in episodes he was in, the Dalek voice effect would change from episode to episode. And I asked him on stage as an interviewer in front of hundreds of fans, why does the effect differ? And he said, because we never wrote it down, all right?
At least he's honest.
Yeah. He could have made up a wonderful story about something, and this guy thought this, or nope.
Well, it's the progression of the Daleks.
The look on my face was like, well, what's the matter with you? Can't you do your job properly? I love Dick. I hope Dick's still with us. Is he still with us?
I believe so, yes. I'll double
Dick
check,
always does me the enormous
yes,
what's the word? Honour of always remembering me.
Aw.
And because I interviewed him years and years ago, and he always, and the last time I saw him was at that 50th anniversary big convention in London that the BBC did, a celebration of Doctor Who, whatever it was called, and he was there, and he's like, oh, hello, Nick, So it's really nice.
He still tours and does things with the Radiophonic Workshop now, with Mark Ayres and Paddy Kingsland and
he's an amazing
Peter Howell,
chap.
Roger Lim. He's still up and going for it, so good on him.
A huge admirer of Dick, yes. Anyway,
I
that sounded like a
think
weird
it's safe
statement.
to say.
I think you know what I really meant.
Let's not isolate that sound.
Yes. Well, I'm giving this one a 5 out of 5. It is what it is. It's superb. I can't fault it. I love it. It is a huge part of who I am.
Well,
Who
surprisingly,
you are.
I'm going to give it 0 just to see the look on your faces. No, I'm going to give it 5. 5 exclamation marks.
And I'm going to go with a 5 as well, because to see the original, the OG, as the kids say these days.
Do they?
They do.
Say
Do
the
they,
OG.
Benj? Do they?
Yeah, they do. They say the OG.
What does that mean? What, as
The
in
original,
original?
I see.
Original,
Yeah.
yeah. Original gangster is the OG, I guess. Am I wrong? I don't know. Yeah, and you got to do it's whatever.
So whenever somebody says gangster, I'm just like, gangster.
Old lady doing
Gangster.
throwing gang signs up.
It's like gangster with one finger missing has been shot off.
Yeah,
That was
Or is
that
it-
was
or
how
is
he
it like
got
that?
into the
Is
gang.
it like
They chopped
that?
off his finger.
that's more rocker.
That's I love you.
That's like
That's
rock
I love
on.
you.
That's I love you in sign language.
I suppose it
This
is.
is
but
great
it's
for an
I-
audio podcast. If you're watching the video, then you'll be up on what we're doing.
So here's an I,
Yeah.
here's an L, and here's a Y. I love you. That's what I love you is in sign language.
Is it in American Sign Language, I presume?
I don't
in
know
ours,
how
it means, can you put the bins out?
I don't know how different it.
I think it's totally different conceptually, isn't it?
I don't know. Well,
Someone write it and tell us, for
Yes,
cool's
tell
sake.
us,
We're
'cause-
so ignorant.
I'm an American.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, on that bombshell, then, I suppose it's time to get close to the microphone. But before we do, actually, should we decide on what we're going to watch next week? I think we should do the Dalek movie.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that seems just because I know we've covered it before.
I
but
haven't.
I feel like it'd be so good to see Shelley see
Okay.
those two things, and we'll compare them. So think of
It's
next week
so-
as a part 2.
It's so different. So different.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it because obviously I've known that Peter Cushing has played the Doctor, but I've not watched it. So
You've not seen it in action.
Widescreen, very widescreen.
all
colour.
right.
In color.
So close you can feel their fire.
I'm excited. Yay.
I'm really interested to see what you think, whether you'll be appalled. I mean, for ages, I do love them. I do, you'll have to watch the second one as well.
Okay.
That's the better film, the second one, which is based on the second Dalek story, Dalek Invasion of Earth. Yeah.
That was always
they
when-
whiz past. They're only an hour and 20 minutes long, I think, aren't they? Yeah, each of them.
That
so
was
it's
always
condensed
one of my
7
favourite
episodes
things.
into that small amount of time.
But it works. Well, let's save that for next week. But I
Okay.
would say that was always one of my favourite things about you, Nick. That was when I knew that we would go on to be fantastic friends. is when you had a terrible experience and you were really upset about something.
Oh, yes.
We were away. Won't go into details of what it was. But you went to your hotel room and that was that. And I messaged you, and I'd been up, I'd carried on, and I was having a few drinks and doing whatever. And I said,
Yes.
is everything okay, And you said, yes. You said, I'm fine. I said, I just went to my room, I had a bath, and I've just watched the whole of the Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD, and I feel much better now. I thought, I love it. He just went to, that's what you wanted to do, and I just thought that was great. I thought, yeah.
Well, I bought it on iTunes years ago, so it's on my computer wherever I am. It's kind of, I need the Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD. Oh, goodness
nice comfort,
me. Yeah,
nice
love
comforting thing. But, well,
that's
there
a
we go.
build-up for me.
Yeah, have a bath and watch the Daleks. On that note,
Yes.
thank you. So I've got the microphone upside down this week. It's quite hard to do. It looked like I'm about to eat it.
You young fool.
So from me, Benji C, it's goodbye.
And from me, Shelley T, it's goodbye.
All I managed to do was just cough into the microphone. Yes, and from me, Nick Briggs, it's goodbye. Don't forget to send your emails to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Goodbye. Pressing stop now.